all. Look in my eyes and don't look away. Hold my hands and don't let go. Listen to my breathing. Don't hold your breath. Hear my heart beating. Don't think of it stopping. Run with me as we ran as fast as we could. Time threw its noose around our necks. Pulled back so hard we came off our feet, slamming onto the ground, our backs bruised and broken. Look in my eyes and don't look away. Hold my hands and don't let go. Listen to my breathing. Don't hold your breath. Hear my heart beating. Don't think of it stopping. Move mountains with me, let hope live again. As we stood up dusting the earth off, it started to quake as we watched the mountain crumbling ground, giving way, our world coming undone. Look in my eyes and don't look away. Hold my hands and don't let go. Listen to my breathing. Don't hold your breath. Hear my heart beating. Don't think of it stopping. Dorothy, Dorothy, just hold on to me, hold on to me. Hold on to me,
All right, guys. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. This is PRT. Join us in the real reality. You know how it goes. So here's the thing. I know what you're thinking, and the numbers reflect it, because you're like, why are you here at 4 in the afternoon? Well, first of all, I've been running around doing a ton of things, and good news for you. Okay, so we're probably going to have 2 shows tonight. I can't guarantee it, but I'm going to try to get out to my ranch and then try to get back so that we can do a members only tonight. And it will be a continuation of last night's show. A lot of people emailed me about that and were like, how long is it going to be before we were able to know the conclusion to that? Well, hopefully, if I can get out to the ranch and get back from the work I got to do, it won't be long. I won't make you sit and wait. Thank you for that donation. We appreciate it. And I know that we're not going to have a huge number in the chat right now because this is not our normal time slot. You guys are used to me going on at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever. And but we had a special guest today, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's one hell of a researcher. I got to tell you, in the field, he's one of the best. And I have a lot of respect for this guy. And he was at my second conference, and it's an honor to be working with him again. And he's always been a fan favorite. I know he's got like a cult-like following, and there's a lot of people that respect him in the field. And so he's done his research on this case. So I thought I wouldn't be doing you I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't bring him on and let him talk to you, the paratroopers, about what he knows about the attack that happened in Oklahoma. Very sad, tragic thing. And I'm not going to make a bunch of comments or whatever about it right now because I want to get him on and let him say what he has to say. I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy this and getting this information and this knowledge and see what you can learn. And I wouldn't have done a special impromptu, whatever, if it wasn't important. But just know that we didn't get a chance to do a lot of advertising. We've been super busy. I've talked about it before. I have a merger going on with one of my companies. And so I'm in the middle of dealing with that. And today was just running around doing a lot of errands, running around doing a lot of stuff. And, but I will get out to the ranch, hopefully be back in time to do the members only tonight. Now, tonight was going to be the conclusion with our guest, Daniel Hamilton, who has a show too called Cryptid. What is it called? The Cryptid channel. And so he was our guest, and we didn't get a chance to let him finish what he had to say. We're not done. He still has some other stuff that he wants to talk about and come back on, but it'll be a part 2. But we're not going to do that tonight. So we're just going to move everything over. So tomorrow night we have True Crime Paranormal on our other channel, True Crime Paranormal. After that, we're going to drop Daniel Hamilton's episode, hopefully, right?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to try and do that. Yeah. So we'll have 2 pre-records, one from True Crime Paranormal on that channel and one for this channel. Now, the Random Files episode that I was going to do today, there's no way I could have done it. I had too much going on, but I promise you that if I don't get it done Sunday afternoon before our main show on Sunday, that I will get it done on Monday. But I'm a very busy person, and I'm trying to do everything I can to bring you quality entertainment, information, knowledge. And without further ado, I'm going to bring you a very good friend of mine and a guest that we have here.
I can't.
Lance, how's it going? Okay, now he's talking, but we can't hear him. Hold on one second.
Okay. How about that?
There we go. We got you.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
sorry about that. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on, Josh.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know who Lance Hightower is, Lance, you were at my second conference there at White Settlement in Fort Worth.
Yes, yes, I was. That seems like how long ago was that? 3 years?
3 years ago. 2.5, but 3 years.
Yeah, I had just got began getting healthy again, and you asked me, and I thought, hey, this is a good way to kind of get back out, and so I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And so yeah, you were going through some health problems at that time, but you have a channel called Monster 41 or yeah, go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, we began in January of 2017 as Cryptid Brothers Investigations of Oklahoma that I created along with my brothers Bill and Lane. And then I became good friends after an interview and realizing he was close in town to Tulsa with Wiley Dave Fritz, who was a professional predator caller and call maker. And then we ran into another guy named Michael, who was a videographer, kind of self-taught videographer. And so we thought, this is a field. It just really started out really kind of happenstance. My brother in 2016 said, hey, there's some interesting shows on this YouTube, and I think it falls in line with some of the stuff that kind of we've experienced. And so I went to YouTube and started listening to this thing called podcast. And I thought some of this sounds very similar of the experiences we've had because we grew up in the country. Our dad was in the state parks of Oklahoma. And so wherever he got the next job, that's where we lived. And so he transferred about 3 times throughout the state. And in doing so, we always had the woods to play in. We had lakes, creeks, and just kind of untamed woods, so to speak. And ever since I was a little boy. And so, in living in these state parks, there's a lot of people in the summertime. Back in the 70s and 80s, state parks were the thing to do back then. People went every weekend. The parks would fill up in the summertime, spring, summer, and fall. And then come winter, they were just kind of quiet and there was no people roaming around. But that was the thing to do in the 70s and 80s. It was packed. Oklahoma did not have a fee to enter these state parks. So it was great. People could go there, just fish, have a license, and leave. Hike, whatever you wanted to do. So during that time, we experienced some very odd things that you just kind of go, huh, that's strange. And then you just kind of tuck it away. But in 2016, I listened to these podcasts and then I thought, well, why don't we talk about our experiences and just come up with a show? So I came up with Cryptid Brothers Investigations of Oklahoma. I I looked at about a dozen formats that were out there already of shows that I liked, and I kind of took a little bit of this and took a little bit of that and found some music that I thought would suit our show, and voila, it started this channel. My first guest was my brother Lane and his encounter he had in a town that we lived close by, which was in western Oklahoma, known as Watonga, Oklahoma. Him and a buddy had a very close encounter that they were chased by a Sasquatch. Um, and then my next guest, I believe shortly after that, was Wiley Dave Fritz in his 2013, which would have been down the road. That would have been down the road. It was Wiley was down the road. When I met Wiley just as a guest and then later we hooked up as a friend. So I can't really remember who guest number 2 was. It's been a while. But anyway, my brother Lane was the first one. And it kind of started off from there. And I was trying to juggle my career as a chiropractor full time and doing this thing called a podcast. I never took a class. I just self-taught. YouTube, you can learn anything. And I just kind of fumbled my way through, figured things out, and spent a lot of time learning how to do everything and getting the right equipment that fit my needs. And then after I retired about 5 years ago, I decided to do this more full time. It's still a challenge because I live on a homestead and there's always something breaking down, something to repair, something to fix. If it's not I do all my own mechanic work and plumbing work. I stay away from electric, but I work on my Jeep. I do everything myself, and then fencing and mowing. And by the time you get through with that, then I just kind of become the other person, which is doing the podcast and calling and interviewing, and then editing takes a while because I enjoy it. And more importantly, I enjoy talking to the guest and helping them navigate and kind of cope with their encounter, that they're not alone. There's a lot more podcasts now that are out there in this. So everybody kind of attracts the kind of guests that the guest feels comfortable with. And so I've just been very fortunate that since the very beginning, I'm kind of old school. I thought many people that have these encounters or have had years ago, they may not know how to look at email or design something, email, but they know how to dial a toll-free number. And I still have the same toll-free number that I started with. And the first, probably by year 2, things were rolling a bit better. And I would say there for a while, honestly, I was probably getting 5 to 10 calls a day for like 3 to 4 months in a row.
Jeez.
I was getting so far behind, I had to hire Wiley Dave's sister, Sarah, to help us out. And I was getting overwhelmed. I probably should have set up some type of cryptid call center, but it was overwhelming. I just didn't expect that. It's fair to say that there are some calls that are, may not be legit, and that's understandably so. But, out of the mass number of calls that I've had, I've only had maybe 1 or 2 a year. The majority of the calls, and a lot of people wanna know, "Lance, how do you vet calls, and how do you know that?" And I'll just say first and foremost, you really can't put a lie detector on guests, when they call in. You can't do it. And if you got down to the brass tacks and said, "Well, to make this, I need to go to the person, we'll do a lie detector, I'll talk to their family, I'll talk to their friends, what kind of person, are they an honest person?" And if you go through all that, it's just logistically, you don't have the time or the finances to do that. So what you have to do is rely on the good morals and ethics of the person. You have to listen to the tonality of their voice. And most people, even if you don't know a person, you can hear the fear, the concern, the anxiety in their voice. You can assess that. And that's what I rely on. And my years practicing, chiropractic and taking a lot of history, and I rely on that tone and that tempo and that rate, and I just assess things. And when someone's telling the truth, they'll talk about nuances and details that if you were kind of fibbing or just making up a story, you wouldn't think of talking about. You wouldn't think about um, the hair color was black, but on the tips of it was silver. That's a detail that most people wouldn't think about if you were making something up to talk about. People, and they said that raised the lips, you wouldn't think about somebody would say, yeah, it was the color of bubble gum. When the lip came up and they were snarling, it looked like bubble gum hair.
Mhm.
And so there's little nuances of every encounter. The biggest thing that I realize is that you don't want to lead a guest. And I, in the very beginning, did. I was terrible. When any podcaster that gets involved, the old rule is, your first episodes are terrible, 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 okay, terrible, terrible,
Yeah.
somewhat better, and I was the pinnacle of that. I did more what not to do than what you should do, just through trial and error. But I try to listen to the comments, and people were very good at giving good constructive criticism. But yeah, that we got formed there, and we started, and then it just kind of developed in between my brothers and I talking to more people sharing what they've seen, and it just kind of went from there. And then I got ill. I was trying to burn the candle at both ends, so to speak, and then my immune system got down. I was getting sick all the time, and I thought I had something seriously going wrong. I was fatigued all the time, and finally I went to a good friend of mine that was a physician, and he said, "Tell me what you're doing." And I told him. He said, "I think you need to take some time away.
Mhm.
Let your body heal up." Um, he said, "What are you going to do with your practice?" I said, "Well, I'm thinking about retiring, in another year." He said, "Good, good. I think you need to." So I took about a year and a half off, let my body heal up. I literally didn't post anything. I listened to what he had to say. And then when I retired, I was ready. I felt better. And then I came back in December of 2024 with kind of my first show with Frank Stone. And here we are.
You were talking about your brothers. The first, because I started out in this with my brother, first researching, just doing the amateur researching stuff, and we did it in this area. We didn't go far flung, but Texas is a big state, and we have a lot of friends. So we did some work down in East Texas, down on the other side of Houston near Beaumont, and then we did some work up in Fort Worth area. And then we did some out in West Texas. We didn't go out of state or anything like. Well, we went to New Mexico, Louisiana, but nothing else.
Well, that's
And
the thing. You don't have to go very far.
yeah, you don't.
And,
Mm.
and I admit, when we first started this, my goal was to travel to that state, to this state, and I still am going to do those things. But then I was hearing, the amount of people that were calling from my state and surrounding areas, Texas and Kansas. It just started getting more focused into the state that I live of Oklahoma. I started telling people, they would text me, "Lance, where do I go? Where's the hot spots?" I said, honestly, look in your backyard. Look not too far out of town. If you're in the city or a metroplex, go look around in the 20-mile radius. sometimes you don't have to go far. Are there any strange happenings or stories that on the surface appears benign, but there's a little bit more deeper story there? I said, you don't have to go far. So, you know, I personally with me, what I have, I don't have to leave Oklahoma to get a story.
Mm-hmm.
They were happening all the time in every state except Hawaii, so you're right.
Yeah. And you started with your brother. So what did they just they dropped out or?
Yeah, so we I got invited in 2000 and see, it was 18. I got contacted by a UK film company. They were super nice. And I thought it was honestly a joke. I got an email saying, "Hey, uh, we are looking for some people for a show, and we also are looking for um, record or we're looking for people that might share their story." And this was all new to me, and I thought, "All right, this is kind of a spam or something." So I ignored it. Then I got another one and another one. And I thought, "Well, okay, I'll answer it, I guess." And it was a legit company, and then I sent them some people. I said, "I can't promise you anything. They may say yes or no, but I've contacted them ahead of time, and they said that you can contact them." And we did that, and then they said, "Hey, we got this show coming out in Alaska. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, what's it about?" And they said, "It's about missing people."
Oh,
And I said, "Okay." And I still wasn't sure if this was legit in a way, but then I realized, oh, it is. And so during that time, I'll fast forward. I did that. It was a wonderful experience. Had a great time. I learned a lot about behind the scenes on filming and sound and things that really helped me now. Um, but then they had another idea about shooting a show with just my brothers. So we did a sizzle reel here in Oklahoma, but long story short, my brothers, we'd shot it, but they really couldn't commit time to anything. And I saw that they were moving in different directions. They were getting a different, they had one of them moved to a different town. And so what started was Cryptid Brothers. And I didn't want to give something that was false. It was really Cryptid Brother. And
yeah.
so I thought, well, I think I want to give a new name to the show if it's just me. And then every once in a while, I can have a showing of one of my brothers, or Wiley Dave involved, and I'll just call it Monster 911. And I did that because most people were kept calling whatever they see, I saw a monster, I saw a monster. And there was moments where people like, I got to talk to somebody. So it appeared and had that feeling of an emergency. So that's where I came up with Monster 911. And it was just me. I was the one you really posting the shows. It was me making the calls. So, but my brothers, I still talk to them about every day. They're just doing their career. And now that I'm doing this full time, so they're just as interested they were before. It's just that I'm the guy really that's behind the podcast. And then, but if we go out and they want to go with me, of course they're welcome. It's just they're doing other things now.
Yeah, because with me and my brother, he ended up like he didn't really want to do the talking because of his voice. And he's actually right there. He just jumped on right there. But
Hey,
he got stabbed in the throat. Something people don't realize. My brother actually saved a guy's life, and so he got stabbed, and it messed up his voice. He used to be a singer.
oh man.
And so, yeah, sad thing, but, and so now he's helping me with in other ways. He still does a ton of research, helping interview people, things like that, and going through the emails, whatever. Bless you. And so one of the things I always thought it was going to be like me and my brother and one of my really good friends. And then it just never materialized. And then Armando Salazar, a 16-year military vet, kept pushing me. He says, you need to be doing this. You have a really good memorization. You can memorize stories. And he tested me. Like he sent me a couple witnesses and they told me their story and I told it back to him verbatim. And he was like, dude, you got something, you have an ability. And so he pushed me. But then honestly, if it wasn't for my wife, Nellie too, she pushed me into doing this. And then it was just, we had guests and we had, people telling their stories. And then I told people's encounters and it just went on. And And it culminated with that second conference, which you were there. It was quite a few people for 3 days.
Yeah,
It
it
just
was
went on and
full.
on.
It was
Yeah.
definitely full, and I think that, it's, what we do in the past, our careers and everything really helps. I mean, it helps me. I've been so blessed to treat, um, about 10,000 people in my career as a chiropractor,
That's a
and,
lot.
so I was very fortunate and blessed, and I was a quiet guy in school. I never just stood out, so to speak, but I got along with everybody. I was always involved in a lot of, uh, sports and band and things like that, but I was the kinda guy that was kinda middle of the road in classes, but I was very determined. Um, so it's just one of those things where I think past careers really help you in this field, and I don't typically forget the interview of most of my people,
Mhm.
the guest. I can recall what where they were at, events, who they were with, and I think a lot of that just stems from what I did in my career. But yeah, it definitely helps in that regard when it comes to communication, which is the key as a podcaster, of course. But you've got other people with gifts behind the scenes that can definitely help you, like your brother and other people that can, because this can develop into something much larger. It takes a life of its own, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you came to the conference, we had I could say this, we had like 26 big name people from the field, like a lot of big names there. And you came on and you were immediately a fan favorite. Like a lot of people were happy to have you there. And when people would come up to me, they're like, Lance Hightower's there. I was like, yeah. And so, it was like I was glad that you came. I mean, it really
Yeah,
was.
I'm always awestruck and just very humbled just how, it's, when I was a chiropractor, that was my identity. And when you do something for a very long time, that's your identity. So it was really hard for me to retire. It took me about a year. I had
Mhm.
my license. I wasn't seeing patients, but I still had hung on to my license and my malpractice for about a year. And I had, it took me a year to come to grips that it's okay to retire now. You're okay.
Mhm.
Um, but in this field, this community, I still feel this deep passion to help people. And I truly 100% believe that I am. And I gravitate to the person that uh, wants to understand what they saw. I don't always have the perfect answer. I will only answer if I feel that I have adequate information, but I can help them navigate through what they're feeling, the emotion, what happened, if they have this level of anxiety. I'm currently working on some certifications in emotional trauma response, and so I feel that I can still help them in navigating through some of what they've seen, that they're not alone, they're not crazy. And I would like to just record and document, if I can, if they'll let me, of what events transpired. So I still feel that I'm extending that help that I once did as a physician, that I can, now as a podcaster, in an unusual but different way. And I think we all in this field feel that we are doing that same thing. That's why we do it.
One of the things unique to your show, and this is for the audience, folks, if you ever check it out, there's the link to his show. Thank you, Randy, for putting that on there.
Oh,
I've,
thank you.
I've watched a few of your episodes. I don't have a lot of time to watch a whole lot,
I
but
don't either.
yeah, but I'll watch one every now and then. And I like the way that you actually will travel to go and interview these people. That's something I don't have the luxury to do, but you definitely, it's neat to see you sit there on their terms and
And I'm glad you brought that up. I think, you know, we're in an age now where that, in 1980s, when I was in high school, if you would have asked me, someday you're going to be a podcaster, someday you're going to be able to be on this thing called a computer, and you can be setting live to talk to someone, I wouldn't have believed you. I
right.
was the guy, my school was so small and my grades were just average that at the time when computers came out, when I was in high school, you had to be like a superstar A person in your math before they would let you even go to this special room that had something called this computer, and you couldn't get on unless you had like an A. Well, I thought, who cares? But now, I mean, things have changed so dynamically. But what matters is that you cannot change the dynamics of the interaction when you're actually interviewing someone in person.
Mhm.
As human beings, we are meant to communicate. This is good, don't get me wrong. But there's something special that happens when you're on the scene at a person's home or at the place where an event happened, if they feel comfortable to go back to that scene. There's a lot of dynamics there, but it actually puts them in
Your
a
connection is a little bit messed up there, Lance.
oh, let me see.
You're kinda frozen. You're frozen now, but I mean, I can hear your voice.
Okay. Sorry. I've got good connection here on this side. It says I do. Is it
Let's see.
okay?
Yeah, it's showing that ours is healthy too. That's weird. I know there
Mm,
was a weird thing, and this is maybe it's fine for the viewers, and that's cool. That's all that matters. It's weird because I remember at one time, whenever I tried to interview you, we had interference. I remember. Do you remember?
yeah, I
That was
don't
weird.
I'll say this. There was another person, I'll think of it here in a second, that, I was doing a show with, and that's when I didn't have this little studio built out. I was actually, just outside of my house in this, honestly, a storage building, and, that's a whole 'nother funny story, but, uh, I had the most odd we were doing a live stream, and there was some strange things going on that never goes on, but during this live stream, it was weird, and, I don't know, you could kinda go to the nth degree of what's going on, but, um, getting back to the live interviews with people, there's just something that's really special about sitting down with a person,
Yeah.
and, people here in Oklahoma, most of the people that have these sightings of all kinds are just down to earth people. And that's another aspect too. When you have someone that has an encounter that they don't understand, that they've never encountered before, the storyteller in them comes out. And my job that I've gotten much better at is just to shut up and listen. And then, because if I interrupt too quick, I have learned you will disseminate that memory recall of that person. You will completely erode it. So you need to let them first get everything, even waiting through long pauses while they're trying to recall. And a lot of people take that, well, they're just trying to make up stuff. No, they're not. There's aspects of a memory that
Mhm.
you're
They're trying
jogging.
to recall it. Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Eh,
Lance, when you hear you saying all this, it's just that I went through the same thing. And I actually, there's one in particular, David Weatherly, really good friend of mine. We're really good friends. But I interviewed him the first time and I just talked the whole time because I was like so giddy to have him talk about everything. And then he ended up doing the foreword on one of my books. And we were at the conference and he actually said that. And like when he did his little speech, whatever he was like, he goes, and that's how we became friends. But he was such a gracious person that he didn't, hold me to the fire on it. And he actually came back and then was in studio. But yeah, I did the same thing. Like, what year did you start, Lance?
with
Like, when
which
did your show first come out? What was your
Oh,
first?
well, as Cryptid Brothers, it was, January 2017. It was on a Wednesday, believe it or I remember that. So I actually started the show while I actually had a office in downtown on Yale, and I started right over my computer, and it was, kind of a it was terrible, you know, but, actually I overloaded it, and it just completely crashed on me. Uh, but it was, a Dell computer, and I pushed it to its limits. And but I started in my office in between patients, and That's kind of where I started in January 2017. And of course, like I said, I had about a year and a half of sabbatical. Um, and as a podcaster, there's a lot more. I was doing some research, and I did a little I did a conference at the Honabi conference last fall, and I did a segment. A lot of people said, tell me behind the scenes what it's like, because you never see behind the scenes of a podcast. And I said, well, I'll talk about it. And what I didn't realize is that on YouTube they have all these analytics and they got stats. I didn't realize it that every 3 months YouTube has estimated there's like 100,000 podcasters that quit. That, like, they call it podcast fading. And to get most people quit when they're right at the cusp. And if you don't generate quickly, I think a certain amount of subscribers, they don't put you in the browser. They can't find you. So a lot of people called me and just say, how do I get going? And I said, well, there's a saying that says, good artist copy and great artists steal. And this was kind of related with marketing, but I thought, well, and that's where I listened to, I saw some podcasts that I like, and I took a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and then I put it all together, and that's how I came up with my show. And it worked. It worked real fast. And then over time, I developed it kind of how I want. I always test and do different things. Like you, I don't, there's no arrogance in saying this at all. I don't watch other podcasts, not because I don't want to. I would love to, but I just don't get a lot of time because if I want to stay married, I need to spend time with my wife. My kids are grown, and I like to spend time with my son who lives in town. He comes out and we go camping. And by the time I get through with homestead chores and taking care of 4 dogs and fixing fence and mowing the lawn and doing all those things that everybody else does, and then interviewing people, editing, posting shorts, longs, writing a book right now, and doing other things, somewhere I've got to sleep and eat. And so I just don't get a lot of time to watch them. But I wish I had another one of me just to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. But you learn as you go through. The biggest thing and the most important aspect of what we're in the genre is the guest, the person telling the story. They're always the most important. I know the creature itself is intriguing, it's mysterious, it's captivating, it's engaging, and I'm with everybody else. But it's kind of like my practice. The most important person in my practice wasn't me, and it wasn't my staff. It was my patient.
That's right.
Next was my staff, and last was me.
Yeah.
And they are it. And so I always had to be present with them when I was in a room. And it takes a skill set to do that, where you're not thinking about anything else but that person. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I view my interviewing. I will spend an hour. The longest interview I've ever done was almost 4 hours in one time. And it's just what you do. And I wanted to give them all the time they needed. So it's a process. It's a learning that we all go through. And if you want to be good at anything, if you really love people, and I do, I really like talking and touching base with them again. Hey, this is Lance. We're not doing a show. I'm just calling to see how you're doing. I do that a lot. And no matter where they're at, not just Oklahoma, but Florida or Michigan or whatever. So I don't like to do just one and done. But yeah, it's really a passion for people. And then really secondarily, what did they see? What did they think they saw? Was there anyone with them? And then after they get through talking, you basically ask questions instead of, you ask open-ended questions rather than leading them down a road. Tell me about the red eyes when they didn't say anything about red eyes. You need to ask questions more like, was there any smells? Tell me about any smells if you smelled anything. Was there, what was any emotion that you felt before you saw this and after, you know? So I'm getting better at asking questions just because you hope you do. You spend more time at it, and if you really listen to some of critiquing yourself.
Yeah, one of the things I remember that'll always stick out in my mind was when you showed up, we had double booked your room with Chris Garetano,
Oh yeah,
and you were so gracious about it, you know, and it was Chris had already had 2 other people go into that room, and it wasn't our fault. That was the hotel, and
yeah.
they were cool about it. They were like, "Oh, sorry," you know, and so they gave us extra keys because I was like, "We're missing 2 rooms. Like, what is this?" And we had paid for all these rooms,
Oh
and,
yeah.
I just remember you walked in, Garetano was like, "Dude, this is a 3rd person that's coming around," and you were so cool about it. You were just like, "I can sleep on the other bed. I can sleep wherever." You didn't care. You were just, like, so gracious about it, and I felt bad for you, and I felt bad for Chris, but I made it
Yeah.
right, and I just said, "Hey, man, we gotta get this straight here," you know, and
I'm old school. I grew up in the country sleeping, you know, my in the '70s when I was a kid, some of the tents we had back then didn't have a floor in them. You slept on the grass,
Mhm.
and they just had a canopy over you, and but to me, I was the coolest thing in the world. And in the morning you woke up, you were just loaded with chigger bites.
Yeah,
And
like
I
the
was
like
I
the
mean, I
kid.
was so miserable,
Yeah.
but man, I had a big smile on my face because I got to camp out. I was like Jeremiah Johnson, you know? And, you know, so I'm pretty rugged. I'm not a
Yeah, you were just like, "Whatever, man," you
I'm
know?
whatever. I'm just easy go. There's life is too short to get upset over things that don't matter,
Yeah.
and, I don't expect anything different than any of your listeners or anybody else. I'm just an average guy, normal guy, and I still have, you know, I gotta take the trash out. I
Yeah.
gotta feed my dogs. I
Very
gotta
humble guy, yeah, and what you were saying about your chiropractor business, one of my best friends, she had a business for you. She just retired from her business too, and interesting because that takes a toll on your body, and what you said about making the client be the focal point, that is successful business 101. I've had my company for almost 20 years. Well, 20 no, actually, I'm wrong. My first company, after 2 years, it was 21 years now that I've been doing it. And I've been very successful. And so it was not hard to, you know, when we transitioned, now we're going through a merger with another company, but they acquired another company before us. So we're all trying to feel our way. But
Yeah.
that is going to be the way of the future. You have to get bigger, you have to team up. And I've tell people that many times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you have to learn to get along with people. You have to make, some accommodations and be with people that think alike, that want, you know, you, y y y the way I look at relationships or anything, it's kinda like a, you know, a marriage, really. Take your time to get to know the person, and then, and if it's just not a good connection before you do business, then it's not a good connection. Doesn't mean you don't
Mhm.
like the person or respect them. Um, but, I was very hard on my body. I'm not a big guy, you know, I'm 190 and 5'8" and a half, but I treated a lot of very large German descent people in these farm communities. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking guys that were 21 years old that were 6'5", 240, 250. And so I was very proud at the time that I could easily, I was using old school, my hands. So I was very proud at the time I can adjust these big guys, and I could, and that's why they came back to me over and over. But I felt deep down that someday I would pay the price, I'd pay the piper, and I think that was part of my health issue because I have a lot of, arthritis from that and,
Mhm.
degenerative disc problems in my neck and back. But, I mean, I'm fine, because I practiced what I told people to do for years. I reduced weight. I, walk and run every day. Um, I eat, really lean and light. So both my wife and I, you know, we just said, "Hey, you know, we gotta change lifestyles now and do what we tell people that I've done, you know, told people to do for years." But it was hard on my body. So I miss it, but I don't miss the physicality of it. I would rather do what I'm doing now, and I still camp and I hike and I go out and I interview people in the field, but I'm I'm thankful that I can still do what I want to do when I want to do it. And yeah, people, the person always came first to me. I would stay till 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night. I treated people from all walks of life. And I just chameleon the person. If they didn't want to talk a lot, I didn't talk to them. If they want to talk a lot, I talked a lot. So I just kind of chameleon their personality. And so, yeah, I mean, and I just feel that that was a stepping stone for me to come into this podcasting. I definitely am still learning. I never have ever wanted to believe that I was a master of anything, but rather a student of learning. Because I think if you have this idea that you're a master of something, your cognition, you stop wanting to learn, that desire.
You stop learning. You do. I mean,
Yeah. And so
Mhm.
I always say I'm a student of learning. I read all the time when I can. I read up until bedtime. But for me to really get things done, I have to structure my day. I have a day that I return my comments. I have a day that I do my emails. I have a day that I do my interviews. And it allows me to structure a week and getting things done. And that's how really I do it. I have a day that I work on the property, and then I have a day that I do this, and then I just repeat everything the next week. Now, I have literally been on the road and someone calls me and I'm driving. I will not turn that down uh, because sometimes people have an incident happen and they want some answers now. So I have done impromptu interviews when I go home. I'm just still in my work shirt and I just put on a hat and get in here real quick, shut the door, and they're ready to talk. And
Yeah.
I have done that. So, but it is a very, very unique, fascinating, scary, bizarre field that we're in. Um, and it's just every week I'm always in awe of something else that I've heard that, by the time I go to bed, my wife's asleep and I'm just trying to go to sleep. I'm just I have to sit there for a while and contemplate that I just hear what I
Process.
heard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, but anyway, yeah.
So I had a question. So here's the thing, and I want to segue into what we're going to talk about today.
Sure.
Because you said something earlier. You said you still love to go camping. Now, I've gotten back into the woods. I was out of the woods for about 15 years. I was like, I'm good, but I started slowly going back in, and
Mhm.
I would go in here and there with different people. And now I don't really have any fear anymore, because I feel like I'm saved. I feel like I'm protected. I don't feel any fear. Christ is my liege. I don't, but there was fear and trepidation for a while, but I think it's different now. And the thing I want to say, you said you go back into the woods, right? And
Mhm. Yes.
you're fine with it. But
Yes.
hearing all of these things and these people telling you all of these things about monsters and different things like that, how does that affect your mindset when you go out there? Do you just turn it off, tune it off? Because I mean, like we have this attack in here that happened in Oklahoma, and you
Yeah.
covered it.
That's a really, really good question. I haven't been asked, but I think about it all the time. And it's not that it's like my son goes with me and he's not into this subject. I mean, he's heard my shows. He gives me advice. He's a little bit more techie than I am, so he can kind of, well,
Mhm.
you need to do this and do that and do this, but um, because of my background, because I'm an avid, I go and shoot my firearms quite frequently. I camp quite frequently. When I go in the woods, it's kind of like when I was a kid. It's kind of like no big deal. I just kind of know my way around and just do it. I don't put it out of my mind. When I do interviews, it's kind of like I take bits and pieces. I remember the overall story. I write. I write. I'm still old school. I take a 3x5 card. Every guest that I've ever had, I put them on a 3x5 card, and I make little notes from the interview when they tell me things, and I file it. I actually literally have a file, and I file it in there, and I make little notes. But I'm also making notes in my head of when I go out. So one of the things that I do, you hit it right on the head. I do say prayers when I go out. I
Mhm.
I actually bless my firearms. It sounds kind of bizarre, but it's really not.
No, that sounds not bizarre to me.
It's not to me. And I'll say a prayer and blessings over the, where we camping, and my son will join me. But I'm very well aware of my surroundings, you could say. I'm not like hyper paranoid or looking around or anything like that, but I always have a firearm on my side, and I always have what's called a camp rifle or a shotgun that anyone can grab it, and it's accessible. Usually, it's by the fire. Um, I don't have bandolero of ammo or anything. I'm wearing. I Wiley Dave one time we went out and he had it looked like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and he was just he cracked me up. I said, "What war are you planning to get in?" And he was kind of huffing and puffing because he was carrying so much ammo. And but anyway, he's a great friend, and I tease him, but so it's there's those little pieces of something. The biggest thing when I go out is I expect I'm going to see wild hogs, maybe rogue dogs, a bear, and you have to know what to do when you encounter each of those. Um, depending on your encounter, so really it's your body posture. I don't know if you watch any of a lot Caesar Milan, kind of the dog whisperer
I
kind of
used
guy.
to.
Okay, so one of the big things, and it made so much sense. He's got a training facility in I think it's California, that he trains people uh, that trains people to become a certified, I think, Caesar Milan certified dog trainer. And one of the first thing he says is your posture, how you hold yourself, really matters to animals.
Mhm.
And when he said that, I thought, that's a really good point. Um, so really, when I go out, I'm just super sensitive to my surroundings. I'm listening. Um, I listen when I look at the crows. I listen for the crows. Why are they cackling? Crows are kind of like the alarm of the woods. They
Mhm.
don't like owls. They don't like other bizarre things in the woods. So I'm listening for crows. So it's a little bit of everything. So I'm not like hyper vigilant, but I tune in my senses a bit more. But there are times when I've been alone in bow hunting by myself in an area that I know the next family member is 5 miles away. And so you're super sensitive to those things. And so I'm just kind of hyper alert, and I'm always running scenarios through my head. If this happens, what would I do, Lance? If that happens, what would I do? If that happens, what would I do? And so my wife laughs at me because I actually do the same thing if we go eat. I've got to be facing that front door of where
Mhm.
we're at. And I sit
Yeah, I
down
have that too.
and she goes, I know what you're thinking. She goes, what are you thinking? And I said, well, if someone walks in, what would I do with you guys and what would I do next? If they come in with, I know it sounds odd, but I'm always thinking that way. So I kind of do the same thing in the woods. If this happens, what would I do? If that happens, what would I do? And so I think it gives me comfort. Being a Christian, it gives me comfort that I run scenarios through my head. I've got a means to protect me. It doesn't mean that it's going to be totally adequate, but at least I feel secure. Um, and I know that if there's anything in the woods that is foreign, it's a creature or exotic, the percentage is on my favor that I will not get injured, is my feeling and my knowing that if something happens, they're just curious. They may scare me a little bit, but I'm staying put. I'm not going anywhere. And in knowing that, I think that's kind of how I do what I do, where I go. I want to enjoy the woods. I don't want to not go. Um, but I highly respect individuals that have had an encounter that don't want to go back. I think in due time, as they process things, slowly they will. Some people that's had a horrific encounter will go out and start with groups, as long as there's groups. a lot of people, they'll go out, but
Mhm.
I don't judge anyone not wanting to go out because they've seen something that's frightened them terribly.
Yeah, I had that situation and it took time. I didn't really start to go back till the mid 90s. I was forced to go back out a couple times, with some family, and but then it just kind of, gradually, like you said, you take your time and you go back out there. So I have a question for you, another
Yes.
one. But so you covered the Oklahoma case with this woman that was attacked, and
Yes.
so what is your? Because I didn't want to say a whole lot about it because I've read this and I read that there were contradictions, and so I
Yeah.
just thought, you know what? I reached out to you and I said, if anybody's going to know, it's going to be Lance Hightower. So I have a relationship with you,
Yeah,
so I said I'll
I
just talk
appreciate
to
that.
Lance.
Yeah, it intrigued me. Obviously, anything that happens in my state, I've been fortunate. I've been all over the state. I know people from end to end, and so people from all walks of life. When I know welders and I know ranchers and this and that, and so I can always go, "Hey, you're out there near McAllister. What's going on?" And so somebody will relay some information and tell me what they know or don't know. So I'll usually make some calls like that. But in this particular case, it was fascinating, I think, because it started really going viral, for lack of a better word, because of this sister-in-law gave a news interview, and I'm not sure if Fox News out of Tulsa was the first. I don't know, or if it was someone else, but it kind of went viral when the sister-in-law stated that the injured, her sister-in-law, Alicia Maxey, stated that she heard a growl and something dog-like in appearance or dog-like knocked her down. And I think that really people heard that and it just went like wildfire in our community. And instantly people were saying it's a dog man, it's a dog man. And I was not I'm always not quick to judge because I want to glean more information. Could it be? Well, it's possible in the very beginning. Anything is possible, but could it have been a bear? Possible. Could it have been a wolf? Possibly. Could it have been domesticated dogs? Possibly. So there's a lot of possibilities, but I didn't want to get on the bandwagon of being an absolutist and having my bias of certainty going, yes, it's absolutely this,
Yeah, yeah.
because that will kind of ruin your reputation. So, and I wanted to be careful too because it involved the severity of injury she had was terrible. I mean, she's had in the short time she was admitted. First of all, she was hell flighted to Tulsa ICU, and within a short day or two, they already did like 5 surgeries, and she had bicep missing on
Mhm.
an arm that I don't I think both arms were injured, and I'm not sure of the severity of the other one, but it was bad. Um, Face and head stitches, severe bites, and the loss of blood was enormous. Um, so the severity of her injuries were just overwhelming, and that I knew here's something that I was thinking of before I came on, and this is kind of just a general rule that I've noticed. And it's just Lance's rule. It's not like anyone else's. It's just that in doing these interviews, I've learned that if there's a lot of talk going on in the public sector, it probably equals not one of the not one of these creatures that we think it is. And I'm speaking very generic. And the reason why I am is because I think some of the most bizarre encounters we will never hear about, and most bizarre attacks we will never hear about because if it's truly one of these creatures, it will be immediately stopped by this unknown agency. You can call them the suits or whatever you want. I think that will halt immediately, and those parties of or witnesses that saw this creature in an event or an accident or something will immediately stop. So that's my general rule. I always think, what else could this be? Is this a common thing? And come to find out, right now, there was a lab result that did. I can talk about it because it's already been out, I think, by the sister. The lab result of the DNA analysis of the clothing, the bloodied clothing, came back as domestic dog.
Mm.
So now I think they've done some more analysis or testing that they're waiting on of the dog or dogs that were at that place where she was found, at the residence. There's some oddities and kind of gaps in the storyline that I absolutely have no idea. I don't have, neither does the family of the victim. So there's still this questions that they have for the sheriff's department of Pittsburgh County, and they have questions to the game department, the Oklahoma Wildlife Department of Game. There's questions they have, the family. So, but there's some of the questions they have they don't want out because they're kind of personal in nature regarding the victim and regarding the residents. So they're very particular. I took some heat the other day in putting a show on that it was, it was an update and there wasn't much to update. But the biggest thing is that the family was getting word that people were visiting the location. And so they wanted me to pass along for people to please don't go to this area because it could still be an ongoing active investigation because of missing gaps in the storyline of at the resident, who was there, who was not there, why was Alicia there? Did she fall at a certain location? Was she drugged or was she not? Was she outside a fence? Was she not here? There were so many nuances of the story that I only spoke about what the sister Izzy wanted me to speak about, and the biggest thing was she didn't want anyone. They were getting a lot from the same people, not well-wishers, not people praying for them or giving to their GoFundMe, but it was same people that was completely, and it was just a handful. It was just a small handful of people that were inundating them with the same question over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And there were some people that apparently had visited the location. And so on the show, I just said, please don't go. Just don't go, because it could be private property. And if you get caught trespassing, then you could get fined or you could go to jail. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of where it's at right now. There's been one report that I'm aware of. I've reached out. I do talk to Izzy frequently, but I'm careful not to talk about some of it, even though she shared. It's just because the family doesn't want that information out because it's not. They have no basis to know if it's substantial or not. It's just maybe hearsay. So it just goes to show that you can take. It's kind of like a story that starts this big and escalates into something this
game
big.
of telephone.
Yeah, and it gets big fast, and so I'm very careful to make sure that what I say, how I say it, and everything, because you're talking ultimately a person that could have lost her life. She was almost there. She had a very, very weak pulse. They had to give her 7 or 8 units of blood in flight. And that's something that the sister spoke about. So anyway, I know at the first on the surface, it sure seemed cryptid related, but the more that people spoke about, and I would add this little caveat when I would talk to the family. I said, I know this is going to sound very odd, and I'll tell you why I'm asking. Has anyone approached you, either telephone or drove up to you, that was one or two people that was just dressed relatively the same, that didn't introduce themselves, but just kind of odd behavior, or asked you deep questions about the family or about the events? And she said, no, no. And she goes, why do you ask that? And I said, well, the reason why, and I just kind of went into it without going too in depth, is that sometimes in incidents like this, on the surface, when they appear that it could be something other than normal wildlife, there are people on the scene. We don't know who they are yet. We don't know how they know information, but they are quick to respond, very quick, and are on the scene of where an incident happened, or they will find a way to get a hold of you personally when you're by yourself to question you. And she said, no, I've not been approached, but I'll ask other families. So when I started asking that to a lot of people, I was getting, no, not to my knowledge. That's what kind of led me to, okay, what else could this be then? So that's really what we know. We don't know a lot, only that the preliminary results from the report show that it was on her clothing. It was a domestic dog. Now, I know a lot of people could go, Lance, come on, you know that the reports are going to be falsified. You know, if it was something other, would we ever get a notification or a report? And I would say, I understand and I'm with you. I have a guest coming on soon. Well, I've already done the interviews, but we're going to have one more interview with him. And this is a retired National Park Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
And he clearly states, he just says, we gave one report, we gave the actual report to our supervisor, but then they created another report that was different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from his lips, not mine. So I understand, but in this case, what made it a bit different is that you actually, I think the way things will come out is you had people potentially on the scene seeing what happened to her as it was happening, as they drove up. So I think potentially that might come out. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I think it's going to make sense in the end when everything is said and done, that there is a causation that's just unfortunately, I hate to say common, but it's an unfortunate event by a known common animal. So, but, you know, in events that there are attacks, I think really there's going to be some we just don't know about unless you're kind of the first on the scene or something, which I've had a couple of those, and weird events happen and phone signals get dropped. My computer has been acting weird way back when I first started doing this in 2017.
Yeah, I remember.
And that was the Ohio Bigfoot attack. I call it Fed cover-up, but now I've learned quite a bit. It's more than that. But I walked that guy through, and there was just a whole host. It played out like a Jason Bourne movie. It was just the most bizarre, strange, actual events that transpired involving military personnel, these suits, and where these cousins would go, weird things happened in town. And but anyway, that's kind of the scoop of where it's at right now. It's still kind of in a pending nature, and I think in the end, it's going to be a while before everything gets found out.
Yeah.
And but it was it was a terrible, unfortunate event, and it's gone viral. It's gone worldwide now.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, people don't realize how many of these stories are out there of people actually being attacked. This is the truth. I mean, by whether it's a Bigfoot type creature or a Dogman type creature or whatever type creature,
Yeah.
there's all kinds. but a lot of people don't report it. But this was so horrific, and then she nearly died. And I
Yeah.
think there's two kinds. I think there's the kind where people don't get attacked and they survive and they go and they tell you what they saw. And then there's the kind that people go missing. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people go missing. I mean,
That's also a very, very possible fact too. And how many people have had here's the thing that I've learned over time that seems to be a hot button with these suits. These people they're typically on the scene. I think anytime that there is contact made, physical contact,
mhm.
or a car or vehicle that you were in, or home or tent site, anything that you own was touched, damaged, property damaged, anytime physical touch was made, anytime intentional or unintentional killing of one of these creatures happened, these people are going to be on the scene,
Mhm.
some way, shape, or form, whether with your knowing or without your knowing.
Yeah.
They're very good at blending in. So they don't always have to come and look like the guy that's wearing the suit in Matrix.
Yeah.
You know
Neo.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't always have to look like that, like
Mhm.
we envision it, right? I had an interview with a truck driver that had a damaged passenger side door that got smashed in by Sasquatch. He was honest and truthful with his boss and told him everything and just spilled his guts. They submitted to insurance. They threw the door on this junk pile up behind the shop. And I said to the guy, his name was Chris, I said, I want that door. I said, I'll pay you for the door. Just ship it to me. Well, I heard maybe about a week later, he called me back. He said, hey, Lance, kind of weird. And I go, what's up? He said, I told my boss everything, and I was worried I was going to get fired. He said, but the boss wanted to know why. He said, well, this guy's a podcaster and he wants the darn door. He said, okay, we'll get, and the boss goes, well, I can't give it to him. And Chris said,
Wow.
why? He said, well, the insurance people took it.
Yeah. And that's weird.
And, you know, in working insurance for a number of years as a chiropractor, I've never known an adjuster or an insurance person ever to give a rip about a door to load it. They don't care because they take pictures and then they assess the damage and either total it out or go, it's, you know, it's fixable. But they never extract anything and never tow it. So they came with official shirts and a magnet on the door, and they said they represent the insurance company. So the boss calls the insurance company and said, hey, I want my door back. And they go, what are you talking about, sir? Long story short, they didn't even have the claim. His real insurance company never had the claim. She couldn't find it that they had ever paid out. And finally, the lady was exasperated and she said, look, sir, I can't find it. Did you get money from apparently us? He said, yes. Did you get a new door? Yes. Great. I don't know what to say. And that was it. So these people can blend. They have inner knowings of things. So yeah, back to what you said, are there attacks that's happened or people gone missing that we just don't know? Absolutely. I think so too. There's stories out there that would blow our mind that I think we'll never get to know.
Yeah. One of the things I remember when you and Bettina had done a show together, and I can't remember if it was her or
It was
who
Bettina.
it was, Bettina. Yeah. And she interviewed you, and I can't remember if it was her that introduced us or who introduced us, but I remember you were having issues. Now here's what's weird. And this is something that Bettina, one of the reasons why she had brought you up, because at that time, this was really weird. I had talked to her and another mutual friend of ours and another researcher, and we were all, I'll tell you, the researcher was Josh Nanokio, and we were all on the phone together.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about some weird stuff that was going on because we were hearing weird things on our phones, stuff like that. They probably listen to us right now. But so I was talking to them, And Josh had said something, or maybe it was the other researcher. I'm not going to say his name because he's kind of a private person, but they remember this, I'm sure. And I recalled an incident between, it was me, my co-host Anthony. I think maybe Tony was there. And I can't remember who all was with us, but I know my brother was there, and we were in line at Walmart. Now listen to this. This is really weird. This is something I've never said on the show. I've told many people in private. I know we were talking about earlier about Chris Garitano, great guy. I told him this. I told a few other people. Like I think I might have told Monica Rollins. But it was a bizarre thing. This guy was leaning on his basket. Get this. And I don't go to Walmart very often. It's nothing against people that go to Walmart. I just don't like the self checkout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. One of my lawyers told me to be just as a side note there, be really careful with that, folks, because you can actually get in trouble because when they go back and they do inventory and stuff is missing, you could end up being blamed for stealing something. It's just you gotta be careful. So I don't really like that. I'm real paranoid, I guess, when it comes to stuff like that. I don't trust the system, but I'm sitting there and I'm on the phone. I had the phone like this, which I know you're not supposed to do. I don't do it anymore. And we were checking out. There was only a few things we needed. And there was this reddish blonde haired guy. I remember he was looking over his basket and he just kind of blurted out in a nonchalant way, if I still had a show. And this was in like I guess it was during the time when we all had to wear the face diapers, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, and I had pulled mine down because I was talking because it was so ridiculous. This guy
Yeah.
wasn't wearing one. He wasn't doing anything. And I looked at him and I kind of was like, what did he say? So we continued to check out our stuff. And my brother says, he asked if you would still have a show. And he goes, yeah, we still have a show. And he goes, do you watch the show? And he goes, oh, no, I just caught it every now and then. And what was weird about that was like, I think it was like our third or fourth year. And we had an audience, but we hadn't even done our first conference. I hadn't written my books. I was just kind of, I was kind of weirded out by that. And then I ended up seeing this guy on a YouTube channel. I'm not going to say who it was, but he was on that channel and he was talking to these guys. He was telling them about, and I just caught a piece of it. And I'm not 100% sure that was the same guy, but it looked a lot like him. And he was talking about different firearms and how he was a former law enforcement. And I was like, what the heck? And so I watched it over and over again, and I sent it to my brother, and I said, "Do you remember this?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Is that the guy?" And so it had come up about you and your channel and having some interference at different times when you came on with us that first time, we got cut off, which was weird. And I thought, well, this is bizarre. Lance comes on and we start talking, and boom, exactly what Bettina and Josh were talking about. And it is something that we talked a little bit about at the conference too. It came up between me and Abe Seas and a few other people that were at that conference who now I know are not on the up and up. Some of the people that were there, they weren't the speakers, but the people that were there. And I don't know if they are interferers. Let's put it that way. It's really weird. And you talk about these people.
It is.
Yeah.
I would say if I was going to be paranoid about anything, it's not so much about creatures when I'm out in the woods. I tell people don't go by yourself. And if I have my son with me or a brother, I always invite someone just to kind of hang out, have a good time and enjoy the outdoors. But sometimes I go by myself, but I'm very, like I said, very hyper vigilant about looking around me, looking at the woods, listening, stopping. I just don't walk. I walk and stop and listen, walk, stop and listen.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's not so much that as it was in the very beginning when I was having a lot of oddities happening to my computer. I mean, I didn't know a lot about computers, but I knew enough to know that my computer was behaving weird. Uh, Things on my desktop were not as I had them.
Mhm.
And that's what really kind of bothered me. I'm like, this is weird. So when I got into this cryptid genre, I was just thinking, well, people will call in, I'll do an interview, it'll be interesting, I'll learn some things, they'll feel better about sharing. But what I didn't realize is that's just a surface of the story. The other half of that goes deeper, in which these people that I found out through odd things happening on my computer. I had an event happen on my phone in 2017. I had a Samsung. It was the most bizarre thing that my phone's ever done. And I knew something was off. And I went to the store and they didn't know what was going on. They said I needed a phone. And then after about 20, 25 minutes of it felt like it was overheating, it finally all came back on. And from that
Mhm.
point on, I've always heard something. And I always try to be objective. Like, am I crazy, or am I hearing what I'm hearing? What? And then I would have people listen. Do you hear this? And if so, what do you think it is? And so I found out through two eyewitnesses. One was in Florida at Sarasota. His name was Richard. I did an interview with him, and he run into one of two of these people. They had separate vehicles, and there was a Dogman encounter in this state park. And a close friend of his said, "You got to help me. I got some either homeless guy or something. I don't know what it is. Can you come with me and sit with me to take a look at this one dumpster? I've got stuff strung out all the time I have to clean up, and it's way back in the park." So we did. Midday, long story short, they see this creature sticking out from the woods, looking at this family having a little celebratory, like, birthday party for one of the kids. And Richard films it, literally films it from his truck. He said, "I could not believe my eyes. I was dumbfounded. I was in shock. I was scared. I was terrified. I was terrified for the family. I'm like, what is this?" And about that time, this car pulls up in front of him and said, "Yes, sir. Won't you follow me up to the office?" And it was in a very generic kind of a Crown Victorian car, brown.
Mhm.
And then there was a car behind him that was a lady. And so he followed him thinking, maybe I did something wrong. I don't know. Maybe who is this? So they didn't quite get all the way to the park. They whipped into this other place that, like, this lollipop area, and they got out. Well, anyway, again, I'm going to make this long story short. I told Richard was missing some information on his laptop. He said, "Could they have done this?" I said, "Oh, well, quite possible." I said, "Go back and get your information and tell them you know why they're there." Well, he went back and actually found the car, hit on the window, and the guy gets out and he goes, basically, "Richard, I heard what you and Lance were talking about, and no, you're not getting anything. Get back in your vehicle and leave. Leave us alone."
Mm.
So I I'm definitely not one to brag to say that they know me, but they know me. I think the only reason why is that I have been early on kind of a honeypot. I was having people call me that were like having at that time an encounter or had been to a piece of property, whether their own or a public hunting, that day or 2 days before or prior to, they had an event happen, and these people were using my number to listen in to go to that property. And it was kind of like that was what they were doing. And I found that out more so through a guy that I was interviewing. His name was Mr. Two Crows, Native American, wonderful man. And he shared with me some things. Well, about 2 weeks later, he calls and I missed the call, and he leaves a message saying, "I never in a million years believed you worked with them, Lance. I am so disappointed in who I will expose you for who you are. And I'm so disappointed. I really thought you were a good person, blah, blah, blah." And he went in detail, and I still have it. He goes, "I've never seen so many helicopters and military personnel and Humvees out here. I've never seen so many blacked out vehicles and people roaming around in all my life. And if you try to kill these Sasquatch, I'm going to be terribly upset." And I'm like, what is going on? And then I realized that affirmed what I thought I knew. And
Mhm.
he called me back. So I didn't want to recall him because I didn't want them to re-listen what I was going to say. So I just went dark in calling him, even though I desperately wanted to. So I just basically didn't call back. And about 10 months later, he called and he said, Lance, I'm sorry. I realize you were never part of them. You're a good man, and I am not there anymore, but I can tell you that they didn't get a thing. All is well. And he says, "Can I go in more detail?" And I said, "I wouldn't right now, but that's good to hear." And he goes, "They cause me no harm, and I want to protect them. I'll just say they didn't get what they were looking for, and I know you're not a part of them." And so it was really good to hear from him. He has since passed away, but I knew that point that they were using my number and what we were saying. They were listening to everything. I've got different ways now to go around that. But basically, it's through the Eric Prince phone, and which cannot be hacked into, cannot be traced, can't see text messages or anything. But yeah, it was a really bizarre moment for me. I felt violated, and I felt really horrible for the guest because I didn't know any different. I didn't know really the extent of what these people will do and how far they will go. But when Richard told me that, they said, "Yeah, we know about Lance and we know about you, and no, get back in your car and leave."
You know, this thing reminds me of something. I'm sorry, did I interrupt? I'm not sure.
No, please
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, this reminds me of something we talked about at the first conference, and there were a couple of people that were there. One is the head of the NADP, in the North American Dogman Project. That's Jody
Mhm.
Cook. The other one is Dick Valenti. They can attest to this. This is something that happened. There were 7 of us, I believe, and there was an actual picture, and then there was a couple other people from the conference too. I can't remember everybody that was at the first one. We had a picture, and it went around to a few different researchers, and it was of a dogman from Minnesota. Now, this is back in 2020. No, this was in 2000. The first year I did the show, 2019, when I first got a hold of it. And I think Vic Cundiff might have had it, and maybe Linda Godfrey, because it went around,
Okay.
and there were several different researchers that had it. And this woman was from Minnesota, and I interviewed her. And I remember she was an elderly woman. She had no reason to be making stuff up. And she said, I have a picture. And it was her daughter it was her granddaughter who had actually gotten in touch with, I can't remember if Vic gave that to me or if I gave it to him. But we were talking at that time about it. And so I don't know exactly who all had it. I just remember at the conference, I know Jody had seen it, and I know that we were talking about it, and I brought it up when I was on the podium. I said, "Look, this is what happens. They take things from you and from your, So this was on our phone, on the phone. I had it on my phone, and had it on my laptop. And there were several people, and I want to say there was it might have been Butch Witkowski might have had something or something because I had corresponded, and I can't remember. Like I said, it's been a while, and I can't remember everybody who was involved, but it went around, and there were several people who had it, and then it just disappeared. This is weird. And it wasn't just one photo. There was a series of photos of this creature. And to this day, I believe that was real. And I said that at the conference. There was about 400 people at that conference. And I said it in front of everybody. There was more at the other conference, but I told everybody, I said, look, this is something that I think it was a real thing. I
Well,
think that those were real photos. And I think that they were boosted off of our laptops and in our phones.
and that's a good point that you bring up. That's an excellent point, and that is this. Any more AI is getting here within next year. It's going to be really hard to determine
Mhm.
what is
You
real and what
can't.
isn't. And even in the future, it's going to be even
Yeah.
more hard to distinguish. But that's a really good premise that you have, is that if why would you extract a fake
Yeah.
picture? You wouldn't.
Why would it go missing?
Why would it go missing? And that really brings up the overall arching question, and is, why does it matter? Why do they care so much about these creatures, whether it or beings, Dogman, or other things that we don't have names for, or such as Sasquatch and other things? Why do that? Why does it matter? I get that question asked a lot, and I asked that same question when I was interviewing this retired national park ranger about why. And these, he knows about these suits because they would visit often and regularly to their main office, and he would see them. And he said, bottom line, he didn't hesitate when he was telling me this. He said, it represents a potential huge, massive revenue loss to, if something came out that, back to your point again, that these creatures were responsible for abduction and missing people, of injury, that they're even living and present, you would have so many public groups cry out, and the amount of revenue loss to visitation to the park and surrounding townships and hotels and fishing licenses and campers, they wouldn't go out there, and they would be too frightened and afraid to know that a being like that exists. So it represents a massive revenue loss that's, could be in the billions of dollars.
Mhm. From the state parks, national parks, yeah.
And that's what and and I've always assumed that. I was coming up with about 3 or 4 different, but he said, well, just directly, it's a revenue loss if this got out, and they don't want that out. Next, you could definitely, all the things that I was discussing, I said, they're studying these creatures. Are they doing, does it validate the Christian doctrine? Is that a reason why they're hiding it? Is it something that they know very little of and they want to see if they can recreate these creatures? Possibly. So your mind can really go off on possibilities, but you know, these rogue groups or these suits, they are nothing more than the hired hands. The people that are running the show, which are very
Mhm.
few people, I think really have just a very, I can't help but think, more of an evil intent on
Mhm.
this whole cover up thing. Um, they've perfected it very well. They use a lot of psychological tactics in how they speak to someone. A very common feature is they never ask questions. They make statements, open-ended statements, which is a very well-known tactic that law enforcement like CIA and FBI, they use. It's statements, because by making a statement, you will just verbal vomit anything.
Mhm.
So if I said, tell me about the red eyes, you'd talk, I was leading you down to red eyes. You would tell me about the red eyes. But if I say, what happened? We hear you have a problem on Sunday, the 23rd, and I'm
Mhm.
just quiet, then you're going to go, well, you're going to be thinking of all these possibilities. So that's a very common tactic they use. But yeah, it's, I think that makes sense. When he told that to me, it's just a huge, massive revenue loss, and that could extrapolate into so many other lands being closed. So they keep it quiet and they don't give the truth. Even when a life was lost, or a missing person, they allow people to camp in the same areas that people were missing from. They don't stop, which is ludicrous to me. But this guy reveals it, and I asked him, why now are you? He goes, I'm really getting tired. They know that I'm sharing this, but I don't think they have much to do but just listen to what I have to say now. Um, and what's really bizarre is when I was talking to him, every time I've talked to him, the phone gets dropped multiple times. And he finally, when we get back on for the second or third time, he goes, "Yeah, they're warning me that they're listening. That's what that means." I said, "Oh." That's what that means. He goes, oh, yeah. When your phone gets dropped that many times, they're saying, you better not talk too much. And I go, okay, now that kind of makes sense in the past. Because I don't get a decoder book. You don't get a decoder book on what all this means. But that's happened when I was talking to Bettina, and that's happened with you. But when you're dealing with sensitive information, if you're on track of something, you'll have calls drop, shows drop, things like
We've
that.
had a ton of technical problems over the years. Everything is fine, and then you get a certain story or guest, and you start repeating something. And one of the things that really aggravated me was the Hernandez Ranch. To this day, I don't know who it was that did this, but the person, he's not the person that I first spoke to, because these were guys. We have a security company. We were working for a construction company, and those guys, they worked as subcontractors for that construction company, and they gave us this information. And we ended up eventually going and meeting with them. And there was 5 of us, and we went out there and we talked to them. And one of the people we talked to was a guy that had claimed that he had seen one of these things as a juvenile, and that it was, but it was weird. Like, he actually, at that time, I didn't say all of what was being said, because he believed, this is what he believed. I believe this before, till the day he died, that these things were part human. And it was kind of like what the late J.C. Johnson had said, that these things people would shapeshift and then they would stay that way. So he believes that he had seen some weird things. But on that particular show that I first introduced that story, that person didn't want us talking about that. They called it the woo. So we couldn't really say everything that he said. But somebody stuck a business card in his mailbox, and to the day he died, he believed it was me. He said that not me giving the business card, but me telling some people where he was at. And I never did that. I swear I never, ever did that. That had nothing to do with me at all. And I went over it with the person who the show it was, and then there was another person that was accused to say, well, what if it's this person, because they don't like me, and all this other stuff went down. And it was just, I never totally got to the.
Yeah.
It's a big mess. And that picture resurfaced on somebody had redid this picture. And one of the things that I thought about that picture was that it was photoshopped. Somebody had taken the head of that creature, because I remember the original photo had shoulders. You could see it. It looked it was like maybe halfway down at the waist up, and you could see arms. It looked so weird, and there were frames, like you could see it. Those pictures showed up with that thing's head on a wolf's body. And then it went around in this particular group, and it was only in that particular group. And I was like, these people are lying. And I said, this is that photo. And I showed it to some of my colleagues. I said, you remember that photo? And now they're saying that that's the original. And that the woman that we had talked to in Minnesota, who was elderly, somehow had photoshopped that wolf's head on it, but it didn't look like a wolf's head. Now, yes, the photo was of a wolf's body, that whatever that was. And I swore up and down, I was like, that is not a wolf, and that is not the wolf's head. Somebody had taken it and photoshopped it and then ran it through those groups. They ran it through those groups to debunk it. And I'm telling you, Lance, this is what I believe, and I'll believe that till the day I die.
That's quite possible. Absolutely. You saying that kind of this humanistic quality, I've asked Dave a million times. He's gotten tired of me asking over the years, because I'm like anybody else. I want to hear it again and again and again. Some of these encounter stories, especially of people that I know personally, in depthly, and my brother Lane, as well as Wiley Dave, and Wiley Dave. Now that we've known each other for a while.
So, Lance, we are both breaking up real bad. This is weird.
Oh,
like while we were talking and we were going over all of that, we started breaking up, and so here we go with the weirdness, the goofiness here. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's not you, and it's not me. My
Well,
connection says it's good. I don't know what could be
mine's got
happening.
full bars.
Yeah, mine too.
So I guess we're
What in the
getting
heck?
talking about subjects that.
Yeah. So here we go. We start talking into this some of the heady stuff, and then
Yeah,
um
but I guess I was. Let me know if it breaks up again, and I'll repeat. But basically, Wiley Dave, in describing what he saw in 2013, is that it did have a humanistic aspect to it, very similar, as he said, if you were, and at that time it was the Van Helsing movie that he had seen and was using it as an analogy or an example. And he said, even in the movies, when a person changes into a werewolf,
mhm.
the movie maker or editing, they'll make the person still maintain some level of cheekbones, um, as if, to give this representation of human turning into a wolf. And he said that's kind of what he saw, because he said, I said, what's the best thing you can reference that you saw? He said, take one of those werewolves in that movie, make it black, give it yellow eyes, and that's what I saw. So it wasn't so much dog as it had this movie looking cheekbone, very, it had this intelligent look about it, he said. It was so bizarre. He goes, I've never seen it, so I don't know if I can't explain it that well, but it was like thinking, and it was trying to find me. And he goes, I wasn't going to blow my call again. And it just was a very odd moment. He goes, that's the first time in 38 years of hunting predators I actually started to shake. And then he had to talk to himself, like, calm down, Dave, calm down, you know. And because of the sheer size and the speed that he saw it coming in, and just walking around on two legs, trying to, with its nose up in the air, trying to sniff and smell and hear, he could see the ears literally flicking around, trying to find out where the sound was at. And that's what bothered him. Um, and so, it had, and the reason why it bothered him was not only the size, but when he was looking on through his scope on 24 power, it had this level of humanistic aspects of its face, its morphology of how it looked, very similar, I think, to the um, Sibylla sketch she did for Joe. Very much like that. That's kind of, even Joe said that wasn't quite, there's aspects of it that wasn't right, but it was close. It was very, very close to what he saw. So yeah, that's the other part again, is that these stories also have a side that other people are listening, and I suspect people like at the conference, people that write, people that have shows, I'm going to say probably, who knows, 90%, I'll be conservative. I'll say 90% are being listened to frequently.
Yeah, I can believe that. Okay, so I had to mute it so I could hear you through my tablet, phone, whatever, because
Oh,
you were breaking up like to me, but the audience could still hear you because I
okay.
played it through the phone, and we're trying to figure out why, because I could not understand you unless I muted my mic and then played it through the phone
Oh,
because you're
sorry about
freezing
that.
up.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad they could
No.
still hear then. I don't
But
know. Go ahead.
yeah, what you were saying though is very pertinent to the conversation because that makes a lot of sense when you stop and you start looking at like this, like you said, everybody's being listened to. That doesn't surprise me. One of the things that happened to me, I went with a friend of ours. You probably met him at the conference, Ken Gerhardt,
Mhm.
and he helped put the conference on with me. And so he took me to a UFO conference years ago, and I made a lot of connections, a lot of contacts, and then I just kind of went from there. And I started, corresponding with a lot of different people from the UFO field. And they told me point blank that we were going to be inundated with shills and people that were going to infiltrate. And pretend and whatever, and that we were going to have problems just like they did. They said, you guys are going to get it, and so are the ghost people. It's coming. And I 100% know that it's in this, I did a show recently, just the other day. I can't remember what day it was. I did it. It was Mount Charleston, and it was a goat man story. And 100% it was like this satyr type creature. And they talked about I guess they were park rangers. They didn't refer to them as that. They said they were workers, but they showed up and they were not interested in really hearing what they had to say. And they were just like telling people, well, if you're afraid, you should leave. They were not going to go along with what they were saying. And they were not interested in people being afraid, because I'm sure that they were trained to just blow these people off. And there have been multiple. When I looked it up, this is weird, Lance. When I looked up Bigfoot encounters in Nevada, if you just type that in, Bigfoot, right? Because it spawned off of a person's Bigfoot encounter near Lake Tahoe. And whenever I went off of that guy's encounter, he told me his brother had an encounter in Nevada too, because where they're from, and near Mount Charleston. I'd been there many times, Red Rock, that whole area. What's weird is you look it up and it talks about there being Bigfoot or goat man encounters in Mount Charleston. Like, so this popped right up just doing a search. And so whenever I interviewed him, it wasn't a surprise to me that somebody else had already had another encounter there. And, he was talking to somebody who had claimed that there were some near Edwards Air Force Base, not just the Bigfoot creatures, but these goat-like creatures. And the one that he saw had a muzzle, but like a human-like face, which is really weird. But his brother saw one up near, I remember it was broke down the side of the road, right on right next to the beach of Lake Tahoe. And I'm trying to remember the name of the place, near a lodge. And I can't remember the name of it, but he saw this, what looked like, to him, the guy's name was Bowen, looked like a Bigfoot, but with little horns and hooves, with black hooves, and like the legs were almost looked more goat hair like, and the human hair was on the upper body. But you get different descriptions of this. And then you have people who see these things, and they'll not just that, but like Bigfoot, Dogman, flying humanoids, what have you. And no matter what state they're in, when they report these to these park rangers or these workers or whoever is around, they don't care. They are not interested in this. These bear man-like creature reports that we got out of Yosemite and Yellowstone, same thing. Nobody cared about it. They were just like, wow, and it doesn't go anywhere. They don't let these reports go anywhere. And I think you're right. I mean, the first and foremost thing is not even talking about black ops or government projects that this could be or might not be, whatever, but they're going to lose a ton of money, because a lot of people, millions of people, go to these parks and think everything is perfectly safe. And we've had people come on this show and talk about hearing and seeing people doing things in these parks and conjuring things up. We've had half a dozen people talk about this. I mean, just in the last couple of years, I think that it's a really weird thing, but it's not uncommon. It's maybe unusual in the day to day, but when you get down to brass tacks, you start seeing how there are so many people reporting these things. And then when you take all that into account, then start thinking about all the people who aren't reporting this. They're not talking about this.
That's the thing that just really boggles my mind, is that, we have a lot of guests going to, a podcast or two, the same guest, and there's quite a few people that call in to our shows, not just mine, but yours and others. But I personally feel that that's just a fraction, honestly, a fraction of the number of people that experience something very strange. And I'm not saying that they saw something 1,000 yards away and it was misidentification. No, I think they saw something. They know what they saw. They saw it up close. They know what it wasn't. And they are somehow whether they don't want to be viewed as, don't want to be labeled as crazy. They don't want to let this information out, which I'm sure these suits people, they love that. Or they have been spoken to prior to. They have been, maybe as far as soft or hard threats. We don't know, but I know that that's happened for a fact. And so we never know the exact reasoning, but I just think we're only getting a smidge of the number of people that have encountered, that have seen, they know what they saw was something they've never seen before. It frightened them. And for whatever reasons, we just will never hear these stories. And, it's probably a collection of reasonings. But there is, I think the monetary loss is the big one. But that's the biggest thing that this retired ranger was telling me. I said, what is the general theme that you're trying, why you're talking to me? He said, I want the information out because these national parks, bottom line, are not safe. They're dangerous. They're flat out dangerous. And that was his overall hardcore, uh, his theme or his presence of why he's talking out. They're dangerous. They've known they're dangerous, and yet they don't tell anyone. And I'm like, whoa. Oh, he was using the words, not my words. They're dangerous. People have no idea what's truly in those parks. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm kind of like, he said, I said, so if I go to the park, where do I want to be? He says, if you're by yourself, do not go off somewhere remote and start camping. The odds are against you. He said, stay where there's a lot of other people camping. Don't go off on a trail stay on trails where there's a lot of people. Don't go off in La La Land on a trail that could be marked as a trail, but it's not well used, or it's not well traveled because it's lengthy and a lot of people don't like long miles and miles of trails. Stay where there's a lot of people. And that was his words again, not mine. Stay where there's a lot of people if you go to these these national parks. And then he talked about state parks too. So that just reiterated to me that here you have a person that is an educated person, very reasonable, very sound-minded person, and just had no clue when he got involved in the National Park Service that this is just something that they don't really tell you when you get involved, when they hire you, but as it happens, they go, you shall not talk about this, nor will you talk about it to your partner. So they compartmentalize what you see so much that even the rangers can't talk amongst each other. Did we freeze again?
My phone, but it's a delay. So that's why I didn't answer right away. But I can barely understand you through my earpieces, and Anthony's here trying to get it, but I can hear you through the phone. So the listeners are reporting that it's kind of cutting in and out. I can tell you we've had 50 shows without this happening, but now who knows?
Can I?
It's like,
can I answer someone's? Is that okay?
Absolutely answer the question.
I'm sorry. I need spectacles to see things. I haven't been doing that, so my apologies. Question for Lance, if I may: any safety of the official Appalachian Trail? How frequent? Oh, that's a good question. I can't speak on any exact numbers of attacks on the Appalachian Trail. I've had a few people that I have interviewed along the entirety of the Appalachian Trail here and there that they've encountered something. Of course, by them encountering, they live, by them telling me they lived, obviously. But I will say this, that I think I did pose that question to the National Park Ranger. His name is Chris. And he just said that if you want to take my advice, as well as the advice that even David Paulides talks about in his Missing 411 People, he goes, don't go by yourself on the Appalachian Trail. The safety, that's a good one. I mean, for me, I'm absolutely going to carry a sidearm. I mean, I never leave home without it. I carry one on my property 24/7, 24/7. If I'm dumping trash, I'm carrying one. If I'm just walking my dogs, I've got one. So I would say be hyper vigilant on the Appalachian Trail. There's been people go missing. There's been people never found. And if you read the David Paulides, you start to see patterns. And that's what this ranger was studying. He says there's patterns. People are by themselves. They're either older or younger. He said, so think ahead of time, wear bright colored shirts, call people every, half mile. Have a way that your phone doesn't get sketchy. Use a sat phone. Think ahead of time but he goes, bottom line, don't go by yourself. So I don't have a percentage of people or the attacks because we don't know that. I mean, some, if they live through it, obviously, but there's that, what you said earlier, Josh, is what about the people that are missing that were attacked, but they're missing. So it's just labeled as missing. So that's a number we don't know. Were they attacked and then they were never seen? I mean, we don't know yet, but I would definitely be on that trail hyper vigilant on my surroundings, how I slept. I would sleep in positions and in areas where I had the advantage from a terrain standpoint. Even if I encountered a bear, I'd still have the advantage. So, and that brings up when you're out camping, no matter where you're at, know your surroundings, be knowledgeable about the terrain and what animals commonly are in the area and how animals behave. How a rogue dog might behave, how a bear, a mother would protect her cub. How do they think, and you can learn so much on YouTube. I mean, that YouTube is wonderful. So I would just learn all you can in an area, and this helps. The more knowledge that you have, you feel better. You feel more secure of what not to do, what to do, all those things.
Yeah, and one of the things too, like since we're talking about this, you know how you travel or whatever, you should come down here and interview me, and you can interview me in the studio, and I can give you my Dogman encounter
Oh
for
yeah,
your show. I mean, and
yeah,
we could talk, and they can't mess. It's like we could record
yeah.
it, and
Well, I'm going to
you
be
know,
doing more of that. When I leave here at my house, my wife, I always laugh and say she's the normal one of the family between us, because my book collection that I have involves vintage creature cryptid books from when I was a kid that I bought, and I'm all the time reading about missing persons or mystery or wildlife, and my wife works in payroll for an oil and gas company, so she's in the normal realm of things, and I'm the odd one. But what's funny is when her friends say, "Oh, you're the guy on the podcast." They're just asking me all kinds of questions, which is really funny. Um, but that would be wonderful. That would be
yeah.
great. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, you come down and I put you up, and then we could just spend some time and talk, and I could even take you to the site where it happened.
Oh yeah,
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 and maybe you could
absolutely.
even interview my friend that was there. He's never given an interview. He's a preacher now, and he's
Oh,
very committed to the faith, but he doesn't like to talk about it, but he's willing to talk about it. Like he will. And
yeah. Well, I tell you, there's for whatever reasons, I understand again, but some people based on their occupation, I've had people call me like 2 in the morning. I don't get that anymore, where it's planned. And because they're a pastor or because they're a business owner and they don't
mhm,
want to frighten their family, they'll step outside while their family's asleep and then they'll tell me what they saw on the property.
yeah.
I used to get that a lot, things like that. And they want to know, it looked like this. What do you think it is? What should I do to my property? And so I started actually helping people how they can, you give me pictures of your property the way it looks. I don't care about junk or anything like that. Everybody's got junk around the house, outside. Just give me pictures from all angles, and then you and I can talk about it. And so I would have them cut some of the underbrush, put motion detector lights, um, get trees and weeds away from windows, remove dog food and cat food from the outside near the house, things like that. Remove garbage cans, set them further away. It seems like it's basic information, but these are people that don't know these creatures, these beings
Hmm.
exist.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to help them not have their house slapped, uh, because they want to stay there. So my goal is to help them somehow figure out how they can live in some harmonious way. And so by doing those things that tends to deter those creatures, then they can just kind of learn to kind of live on the same property in a
Hmm.
way. Most people won't move unless they have a horrific, terrible experience. So I kind of helped with that over time. And I do that usually. I don't do that as a show. I do that kind of behind the scenes to help these folks. There's so many people I've talked to that I've never made into a show, but I don't mind because it's not about making a show. I mean, it does help. That's my primary income right now, but it's about helping people understand that they're not
Hmm.
crazy. Uh, it's okay to share. It makes them feel better, and there's a release or a relief cognitively and psychologically that really helps them remove this stress, and they feel better that they have finally told someone that won't judge them, that is on their side. I want to know what happened. And when they get a hold of not just me, but anyone that they feel that with, they start remembering details. And then that's when things start to come about a little bit more. And they go, oh, yeah, I almost forgot that this thing happened. And so when they feel relaxed, then things come about. So it's not that they're making stuff up. It's just that sometimes this stress or anxiety kind of doesn't allow all the details to be told yet. And
Hmm.
as they relax, they start to, it's kind of like studying for a test. I can, ask me a question and I'll tell you what it is. But when I get in the test time, I'm stressed and I can't remember. And as soon as I leave the exam room, I'm like, oh, I just now remembered what that was. Right.
Yeah.
It's
If
kind
you
of
if
the
you
same.
ever get a chance to come down though, like I could interview and you could interview a few different people. I mean, I got like 2 or 3 people off the top of my head that in this area you could talk to, and one of them works with me, and he saw something very weird. He was on the show, but
Mm,
you could do a lot of material. I wanna talk to this person who kind of corroborates, investigations I've been doing out near Giddings all the way to Brenham. And we just walked into a place, and I had interviewed a woman named Brenda, her and her husband on the show years ago. And then I was asking about this bakery she used to work at, and they said, "Oh, she hasn't worked here in a couple years. I lost touch with her. She's not on social media anymore." But this other girl that was there, she tells me and my wife and Anthony, Madeline, Tony, and my other nephew, Adrian, she told us all that she had seen this creature with her dad, and it was definitely not dog-like, it was wolf-like, and it was on 2 legs, and she was just adamant that it so there've been multiple sightings in that area, and I've done a lot
mm,
of research in that area, and so there's a lot of different spots we could go to, and I could show you, and man, it'd be awesome to have you come down for a couple days, and we could video some things. And there have been Bigfoot reports near a friend of mine's, bar, that's out in the country out here, and,
mm.
yeah, there's just a ton of stuff out here. I've done a lot of research on the devil's backbone, and man, I could drive you through the hill country and just show you just tons of spots where stuff has been seen. And we've had a few weird incidences, like a place called Apache Pass, where a couple Thanksgivings ago, my wife and my brother and me were out there, and my wife took a picture, and there was this big wolf-like head in the trees. And I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, we captured that, and it was something that Bettina and Abe had been telling me about, just to take pictures of the trees.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
You'd be surprised. We've done that a couple times. And At first I admit, part of me still, when I look at some of these photos we've taken, I'm like, no, I'm just, I'm seeing, I'm wanting to see something, right? This pareidolia, and I'm wanting to see it. My bias is I'm wanting to. But then when I look at it and I'll just blow it up and I'll give it to someone that has no clue, they'll go, was that you in a mask? Was that your brother in a mask? I'm like, okay, they see it and they don't know anything about this. That's okay. So we've done that a few times, and it's our eye, our why the military does the painting across the face, because it breaks up. Our eyes are driven to the human face, even since birth. Children have an eyesight distance within about 16 inches or less, somewhere about 14 inches, and they're looking to the eyebrows, the eyes, the facial features, and that's how they recognize mom and dad. So that their facial recognition is, they can determine happy and sad in mom and dad's face. Well, that stays imprinted our whole life. And so the military's done very well by breaking up the eyes, the brows, the cheekbones, the nose, and the mouth by doing the facial painting. But our eyes are driven to light spots and not dark spots. But in our genre, on what we do, investigation, your eyes, you need to switch that. You need to be driven to the dark spots, because there in the shadows is where these creatures tend to be. It appears a lot of the times. And it would be same for you. If I was out and I was in camouflage and we were doing airsoft against each other, I would be in the shadows. And I would wear camo, and I would probably do my painting, because break up the outline. I'd probably be in a ghillie suit. They don't need a ghillie suit, of course, but my point is that it's hard to switch the dynamics of how your mind thinks from an early age, to go from light to the dark spots, to the shadows.
On the phone again.
Oh,
So I
Mike.
had to catch up because it was
Yeah,
bringing up
that's
so
okay.
yeah.
Mike had a question. No, I'm behind. And Mike had a question. The guy that I roomed with.
Yeah, Mike Turner.
Yeah, how you doing, buddy? So I'm close. I don't, sometimes writing, they always say that when you write your first book, it's hard. You have writer's block. I've never had that problem. I write too much. So my book I printed it out the other day, and it's already about this thick. So I'm going to have to whittle it down. But I thought of something, it would make it a little bit better, to flow better. So I'm still in the manuscript, so it's not ready yet, but I promise I'll let everybody know. I want it to be user friendly on some recommendations. I do pepper in interviews that I've done to make a point or to highlight a point, but I'm going to back off and thin it down a little bit, and I'll just make it a part 2 maybe book, but not yet, Mike. I'm getting there. I'm behind a little bit.
Yeah, I actually dropped Mike Turner off, longtime paratrooper, says you were an awesome roommate, and I actually dropped him off at the airport.
Oh,
him
that's
and
great.
him and
Thank you.
Garitano, actually, I dropped them off together, and it was that last day. It was a great conference. We had a good time, and I
We
really
did. That was
enjoyed it.
I met a lot of great people there that I'd seen
Mhm.
online, and met Bettina, and I met some other um, ladies in the community that have their own podcast. Um, I had a good conversation with Ron Moorhead and his wife.
Ron,
Uh,
great guy.
and then, of course, I met Joe Barger for the first time there. We'd spoken many, many times,
Yeah.
but it's different when you actually get to meet a person in face and face to face. And Ken, I met Ken there, and Lyle Blackburn and some others, and Lyle and I now
Good friends of
we
mine.
we talk often now. So yeah, it was great, and just to meet the people in general, that was awesome. That was a really good time.
Yeah, Joe, we need to start calling him the werewolf slayer, Lance. Joe, Yeah. The only
He's
guy I know.
he's a real he's a down to earth, genuinely good human being, and he's such a quiet. He's a gentle giant. He
Mhm.
but he knows his stuff when firearms.
Yeah, the only guy that showed the gun. That's the only person I've interviewed people, but nobody that showed him the gun to us, you know. Yeah, he actually
Yeah,
had it.
there is there's a I have the original. What's a really interesting feature, I have the original raw, unedited interview. I did the first interview with him, and I still have that. I never played it, and he did give me permission to play it. So, um, what's interesting is that Joe, before I did the interview, he actually did like I think we talked to each other 2 or 3 times where he was kind of interviewing me to
Mhm.
assess my seriousness and how legit I was in wanting to hear. So he was deciding whether to share with me or not, and it was his sister that reached out to me. She said, "You have to talk to my brother." And I go, "Okay." She said, "He's dealing with something right now. He encountered something that he needs to talk to somebody, and he needs to talk to you." And so we talked a couple times before he finally said, "I'll tell you what happened." So he didn't want it to be aired, so I narrated word for word that show, but I have the original, and it, it's a good example of when you hear someone that saw something they don't understand, that you can still hear them reliving the incident, and you can tell that he's telling the truth 100%. He's very thoughtful on what he's saying, but you can tell there's a lot of fear still and terror in what he saw and what he did. Um, so I'll probably play that sometime this year and then kind of set the context of the moment.
So so I'm gonna have to run, Lance, but,
Yeah.
man, it has been awesome having you on. I wish I could talk to you another hour. That's why I said you gotta come down here, man. I'll help you with the
Yeah.
gas and
Well,
whatever you gotta do.
I tell you what I'll do. I will look at my, I have to plan everything out,
Mhm.
because when I'm not here, my wife has to take care of 4 dogs, and they're kind of my babies. I've got a gentle giant, some others, but um, she has to take over the chore responsibility when I'm gone. So I'll plan something in the future. That way, maybe I can have my son stay here to help.
Yeah.
So I will definitely look at my calendar. Give me a day or two before I get back with you, and we'll get something going.
Yeah, that'd be awesome because we could do a whole little mini documentary down here in, different spots, and maybe we can get some people to tell you their encounters. You can interview us, and I
Yeah.
know this. I know that every time I've had you on the show, or we've talked about 3 different times now, we've had some sort of weird interference, and like now the people can't hear it, but I'm hearing like, and I'm having to play it through my phone to hear you.
Oh,
I think that just because it's
that
probably
is
because of who
so
we are, maybe I don't know.
well. Sometimes my mind doesn't want to jump there, but sometimes it's kind of like Occam's razor. Sometimes the most direct and simple answer is the correct answer.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that people can't, kind of in and out here. That's kind of frustrating, but um, you know, I, uh, I've shown excellent bars the whole time. We have
Yeah,
Starlink, and
me
that's why.
too. I don't know what's going on. And it's the audience is only freezing up a little bit. For me, you're freezing up right now, and I'm hearing like when you talk, I can make it out, but it's hard to hear. And I don't know why that is. I can't figure this out. This has not happened in a while. This is a new studio, so I haven't really had a lot of problems here. I don't know.
Yeah, and someone brought up a very good question. You got an amazing audience. I saw that I have yet to do some things for the show, and one of the things I get requested all the time that I will be doing here soon is like live streaming where people have questions um, that I've never done before. Mainly because my schedule's kind of, even though I structure everything through the week, sometimes inevitably like today where I was going to do certain things and then there was a fire across the road. So I couldn't get
Mm,
certain things done, but I'm going to start doing either once a month or bi-weekly kind of live stream show that just people have questions, things, what's going on,
be
what am I
awesome.
reading? And so, and a lot of people have requested that, and I haven't yet to do one, but I think it would be fun. I think it would be great to call on individuals that are have a lot of background and knowledge into this field, like yourself, as well as many others, um, and as well as having guests. I've had a lot of guests that I've interviewed that are so kind. And I said, can we do a combo live stream where you can take questions from the audience? And I think I'm going to start doing some of that because some of the guests are talkers and they love
Yeah.
talking to people about what they don't care. They'll talk to people about what they saw and where they saw it. So anyway, I just saw that in your comment section, and but yeah, I think that's great, and I want to thank you for your time and your audience, and you've been a great friend. I appreciate the invite back there at White Settlement, Texas, and that conference was awesome. And so I'll get with you here in a few days, and we'll communicate.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for being on. It was awesome to be able to talk to you about this case and to get all the information about yourself and just telling us who you are. And I mean, like I knew, but I wanted the audience to know. And I think it was really cool. It was a
Yeah,
nice
everybody has
interview.
a story, and I'm a little bit odd, but
And we all are.
uh, I enjoyed the healthcare field. I treated a lot of people. I truly enjoyed it. I met a lot of different people that became good friends, and they trusted me. And but the other part of me is in this field, and I enjoy it. I care about people. I care about helping them understand things. Not that I have all the answers, but I force myself to learn, and I enjoy it. I meet other people and sharing kind of what I know and what I don't know sometimes. But yeah, I really appreciate being with your audience and being with you.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like we didn't get a huge audience in here because of the time of day, and I didn't advertise like I should have correctly. But usually we get a bigger crowd, but we're
Well, I will
on
say,
the later.
I will tell your audience, it's not Josh's fault here because now that I'm older, I do have a structured time. I spend time with my wife in the evening to have supper, and I try not to miss that because she works from home on Mondays and Fridays. And then another part of me people don't know is I cook about 95% of the time. I'm the guy that cooks. And the reason why is that because of my years in healthcare and nutrition, I feel responsible for the nutrition. So she doesn't have
Mm.
to, she doesn't do that. I'm the one that shops for the food. I cook and everything. So I prepare the meals, and she just tells me if they're any good or not. But so I do that on the side. I do that every day. I cook breakfast and supper, but that's just kind of who I am. I feel a very uh, committed part of my healthcare is that nutrition. So I do that for us. But yeah, so I'm the one that told you I got to have supper with my wife, and so the early I can do it at 4.
Yeah.
So that was me. But
No, and it's no, but it's not a big deal. It's just not our normal time. But I make time for people like you and some of the other people I've had on the show. Definitely good people. We're gonna have a lot more people coming on, and we already have a guest on every week, but then we also have open lines on Monday. People come on and retell their encounters, and then I retell encounters all week, and it's just all week long. Also, we have new shows, folks. Don't forget. We have Dead Zone Transmissions, which is Nellie's channel. That's her project. I'm going to be doing a live once a week, maybe. There's short stories about 20 minutes long. The one that we're doing next is The Troll. And then there is Random Files. We just got monetized on YouTube, so that's a good thing. And now we also have True Crime Paranormal. And don't forget, this Saturday on True Crime Paranormal is going to be alive. So it's going to be about the Kobe killer. So if anybody's interested in that, what could be going on with this guy and who he was and the demonically influenced aspect of that. And Orem says, are you coming on again tonight? Yes, I'm going to try to get out to my ranch, do some work, feed, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the members only tonight. And I'm doing everything I can along with doing my job and everything else I got to do. Wonderful guy, great guy, Lance Hightower, one of the best. excellent, knows what he's doing. He's smart. Me and Lance have something in common. We both are half Hispanic, half white, so it makes us very dynamic and smart.
Yeah, my dad is as white as a sheet, and my tiny little Mexican mother, she's wonderful.
Yeah.
But yep, I am.
I always say if the mom is Mexican, you grow up differently because the mother is the one, she feeds you. You learn about the culture and the food,
Yeah,
and you learn about getting hit with the chancla. So
yeah. My mom was teaching me Spanish at an early age, but
yeah,
I don't want to say I'm bilingual. I speak Spanglish.
yeah,
But
same here.
my mother's fluent. My dad isn't. But so my mom's side, they came from Mexico and Spain, and I've not really dug into the genealogy, but someday I probably will. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's a great dynamic for sure.
yeah. Well, I'm going to let you run, Lance. I got to get going
Okay,
here. I
thank
actually
you.
got to be somewhere soon, but thank you for coming on. And
Absolutely. It was
yeah,
nice. Sorry about the delays here and there to the audience, but it was nice to see some of the comments, and it was nice being with you. I really appreciate it.
all right. I'll see you. You have a good night, man.
All right, you too. Take care, my friend.
I'll see you. So Lance Hightower, one of the good people in this community, and one of the many, many friends that I have in this community. And I can't say enough good things about him. He came to the conference, and him and Garitano both, like with the room mix up and everything, and both nice guys, good people. A lot of good people at that conference, and a lot of good collaborations came out of not only that one, but the first one too. There was a lot of good stuff that came out of it. And so, yeah, Lance and my friendship, that was something that was excellent, and I'm glad he showed up, and I'm glad he's back at it because he did take a hiatus, and I was hoping that he would come back, and he's doing his fire, he's knocking it out of the park, and I can only hope that I'm even nearly as good as some of these people, you know. But here's the thing: I got to run. I love you guys, and I'll be back tonight. Hopefully, it might be a little bit later, but I'm gonna do what I got to do. I'm gonna try and get it done. Okay. Members only tonight. Remember, get your name in green. And I see Missy, you're not in green. What are you going to do, Missy? You're going to miss out. That's what you're going to do. You're going to miss out. He's like, why are you picking on me? I don't know. Larney, you too, man. What's going on? You're going to miss out, dude. But yeah, we're going to talk tonight. We're going to have our members only live stream. It's going to be the continuation of what happened with Gabriana and Coco and this Dogman werewolf, I don't know, that was abducted along with, well, not with them, but you know, really weird story. We've only had like a couple of those over the long history of our show. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to see you guys. I got to run, but I really care about you guys. I'm going to leave it with the Skinwalker. Good night.
Seeking power over those that oppose me. Unspeakable crime, murder at midnight. A deal I made, a life I had to take. Someone I loved once held so tight. The screams will follow me. Cries of my ancestors said, go away. My operator, fasting in brain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal high inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. This form I desire, innocent blood I will devour. Ancestors gathering round the dwelling. The spirit inhabiting, evil enveloping. The dancing graves in the night. The spirit occupying Yes, I'm part of the dark creation. My desires performing incantations. I walk in disguise. If I catch you, it's your demise. Shamanism, my religion, summoning spirits, manifesting myself and changing my flesh. A nightmare to behold. I'ma make you part of the fold. The skin of a man, the soul of a predator. The change is complete. This thing I become, my flesh has succumbed. My operate, fasting in grain, shape shifting. I feel the